Yeah. Hello, everyone. This is Reverend Dr. Roger Paul, and tonight we're going to continue with our study on the significance of Christmas. So this is part 2 of that study. And before we got recording, Millie asked an interesting question, which I'd like to repeat the answer to. She asked if about which this is the 5th epical revelation the book is. So Jesus, that makes Jesus the 4th, and it's also the 7th bestowal. So that's we didn't want to confuse that, but it is both of those, both the 7th bestowal and the 4th epical revelation together, right? So that was a very good question. I want to make sure everybody at home heard that.
That was a very big event.
Yes, a very big event. The whole, it was interesting because this afternoon when I was preparing for this, I read again that in the paper 119, it talks about how everyone in our local universe watched the 7th bestowal. Diane and I was talking about this earlier. They must have done it through reflectivity or something, because everyone in the universe could see what was going on this planet. And it's kind of embarrassing for us because we mistreated Jesus so terribly. But so we're going to continue on where we left off last week. And Rodney asked about the picture I have up there. This is a picture I drew back in 2013. And this is the original sketch I made of it. And then I painted over this in oils. And unfortunately, which I probably shouldn't say, somebody messed up the painting. And I ended up fixing it, but it never was as good as this picture that I drew the first time. So that's so this is, I'm kind of fond of this picture. I thought it came out pretty good. I made Jesus smiling slightly. I always liked the idea that Jesus was a cheerful person. So that's why he looks like he's smiling a little bit. So anyway, this will be on the front of the video. Let's go down here where we left off. We were in paper 119.
Roger, you're echoing.
Yes.
You are echoing.
I just turned up just to turn it up.
Okay, she just muted. It was because Diane had her speaker unmuted. Did it stop?
Yes.
Okay, all right.
Thank you.
Let's go to the paper 119. And Millie had mentioned that we went through this paper in 2013. There are 4 videos on our website of this paper, and they are very good videos. If you're just getting started on this, I recommend you go out and listen to all 4 of them. It comes out, they're about 1 hour and 15 minutes each. And we go in great depth about this paper. We're just going to hit some highlights tonight and finish our significance of Christmas. And I started this last week, and I want to reiterate this just a little bit, that the Christmas holiday is the celebration of the birth of Christ. And we know that that did not happen on the 25th of December. We know it happened on the 21st of August, 7 AD, 7 BC. So the date we celebrate Christmas is not Christmas Day, which we like to think it is, but it's not. It was actually a leftover from the festivals of Treve from Mithraism and the birth of Mithras. So they just transposed that date because the pagans, even though they became Christian, would not stop celebrating the tree festival. And Bill had brought out too that this is also the festival of the sun. It used to be the same date also. So, and many of the legends we have about Christ's birth come from the same legends they had about Mithraism, about Mithras. So, and that's a couple of those we're going to clear up tonight at the very end of this. So we'll get to that. What I wanted to start at tonight was in this synopsis I put in of Christ Michael. Let me restore this. Is that in yellow on your screen or not? I don't know if it is in mine or not. Okay. we got through the first 3 of these last time, but I'd like to just kind of read through all of them for this synopsis, because it's very important that we understand all these things that Jesus or Michael did before he started his 7th bestowal, which is when he was born on the earth. All these things happened before he became a babe on the manger, okay? And this whole process took a billion years, not a million years, but a billion years. The first bestowal started a billion years ago, and each bestowal was about 1,500,000 years in between each one. So he didn't get in any great hurry to do these bestowals. He took his time and make sure that he was ready and did one at a time every 1,500,000 years. And Bill, I'm putting it on you tonight that you make sure I keep my billions and millions straightened out. Because last time when I re-listened to the meeting, several times I said millions and I meant billions. So let's not rearrange the universe here if we can help it. Keep the facts straight anyway. Okay, so actually let's just read through these one at a time. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on them, but I do want to make sure we understand the order of these bestowals. So I'll take the first one. Melchizedek's son, during which he displayed matchless wisdom and superb devotion to duty. On his Melchizedek bestowal, he manifested the united will of the Father, the Son, and the Spirit. Now, last time we talked about how each one of these manifestations was the manifestation of the basic tendencies of one of the 7 master spirits. And that's what each one of these bestowals is he reveals the will or the manifestation of that master spirit in each one of these bestowals. Okay, so Diane, would you take the second one? Turn your mic on first.
To Elanandek. Oh darn.
Lananandek.
I know how to say it. I don't know why I'm saying it. Lananandek's son served as a temporary replacement for a rebel system sovereign in constellation 37. On his Lananandek bestowal, he manifested the will of the Father and the Son.
Okay. So in his second bestowal, he was a Lananandek son, and he replaced a rebel Lananandek son who was a system sovereign. And that was the very first rebellion in our local universe and has since been adjudicated by the Ancients of Days, right? All right, now number 3, Rodney, would you take number 3?
Yes. A material son in constellation 61, where he became an acting planetary prince. On the Adamic bestowal, he revealed the will of the Father and the Spirit.
All right, so his second one was as a material son, and these are the same types of sons that Adam and Eve came from, right? They're the material sons and daughters of the local universe, which are created by, we know, Michael and the local universe creative mother spirit. So he took a place of a material son as a planetary prince. And on the second rebellion, this is the second rebellion in our system. So this person that rebelled, the planetary prince, was also a Lananandek son. And the second rebellion has long since been adjudicated also. Okay. All right. Now the fourth.
That was the third bestowal.
That was the third bestowal. That's correct. Right. All right. Millie, would you take number 4?
Yes, a seraphim in the corps of teaching counselors. On the seraphic bestowal, he manifested the will of the Son and the Spirit.
So he actually was bestowed himself as a seraphim, you know, and the seraphim are created by whom? The local universe mother spirit, right? So it's interesting that he could bestow himself as a seraphim, even though it's usually the local universe mother spirit that's responsible for creating the seraphim. All right. So, and in that particular bestowal, he manifested the world of the sun, the will of the sun and the spirit. Okay. Now, the next one, number 5, Bill, would you take it?
Sure. An ascendant mortal of spirit status on Uversa. During this bestowal, the residents of Salvington began to suspect that Michael was going to eventually incarnate as a mortal on an evolutionary world. On the Uversa mortal bestowal, he portrayed the will of the conjoint actor.
Okay, which is the infinite spirit. We know that, right? Now, this
Right.
is interesting because on this bestowal, he was outside our local universe. Think about this, because if he was on Uversa, he was on the super universe capital. And it's interesting, as on this level of an ascendant mortal, this ascendant mortal was just at the apex of being transported to Havona for the Havona adventure. So this is the highest spirit level a mortal gets to. In other words, he was a spirit. This is the highest level a mortal gets to on Uversa right before they take the big plunge and go on to the billion worlds of Havona, right? So this is the last experience we have as a spirit, as a mortal in our local universe. Then we go on to the super universe of Havona, right? Okay. The next one is 6, a Marancha mortal in constellation 5. On the Marancha mortal, he bestowed the will of the eternal sun. Now, we know that there's 100 constellations, right? So this was one of our constellations. And a little bit of information just for your edification is the fact that we are in constellation 70. Okay, there's 100 constellation, and Norlashadek's number is 70. Okay, and it doesn't say that in this paper, but if you go to the paper on the constellation, you notice this picture has the system number and the constellation of all the bestowals, with the exception of the Melchizedek world, because it's on the Melchizedek world is on the Melchizedek sphere near the capital. Okay. Let me show y'all something else while I'm thinking about it on the constellations for your own benefit. If you go out to the
Excuse me,
papers.
these pictures were not done in the book. This is
No.
something somebody interpreted from reading the book.
That's right. That's right. Some of them I did, and some of them I got from the Encyclopedia Urantia. Okay. So some of them are from the chart of Don Estes, and I talked to Don and got permission from Don to cut them up and use them in pieces for the presentations. So that's the blue
But
one.
this is Don's interpretation of what he read.
That, yeah, well, these particular papers are the gentleman that created Encyclopedia Urantia's interpretation. And some of them I've made little tweaks to correct them because they weren't totally always correct.
Because they're done by man, right?
That's right. That's right.
They are not correct.
That's right. Yeah.
Nobody dealing with this book was infallible.
That's right. Now, this is the paper on the constellations. And the reason I wanted to show y'all this is there's a lot of pictures that break down where we are as a constellation, where we are in Centennius. You can see here it says this constellation on Norlashadek, right? This is one of 100 constellations, right? And this one constellation, well, the 100 constellation embraces 10 million worlds. Okay, so our local universe embraces 10 million worlds, and this is just different pictures of different things. Now, this is straight from the paper too. I made a chart out of this because of the information. It says your constellation Norlatia disk consists of 100 local systems and has headquarters worlds called Edentia. Norlatia is number 70 in the universe of Nebulon. So Norlatia, our constellation, is number 70 in the universe, in our local universe. Okay, that's why I wanted to bring that up. Okay, and that's important because of the next one, number 7. Diane, would you take number 7 for me, please?
Immortal on Urantia. On the Urantia.
You have to unmute.
7. A mortal on Urantia. On the Urantia material bestowal, he lived the will of the universal Father, even as a mortal of flesh and blood.
And that is the 7th bestowal, right? Which is, as Millie said earlier, the 4th epical revelation of God to man. Okay, now this becomes so important at Christmas time because why? If you don't know what Jesus did before he came to earth, you can't really understand the importance of what he did after he came to earth. Okay, so having the background as we do now, we know how important these 7 bestowals were to Jesus. And we're going to know even more before the night's over. It's going to be a short night, but we're going to know even more. Okay, now
And,
the rest of this.
Roger, it
Yes.
also brings up the importance of what he said on the cross.
That's exactly right, Bill.
It is finished.
It is finished. What was he talking about there, Bill? Tell us.
I mean, well, he was talking about not only his life and his revelation of God to everybody on this planet, but he was also talking about his ascendancy and sovereignty that he finally acquired.
That's exactly right. He finished the sovereignty plan for all his sovereignty plan, just like every other creator son goes through, right? So it was literally finished. He was finished with the sovereignty of his local universe. Now, these we looked at a little bit last week, and this is the 7 bestowals he made. He made the first one as a Melchizedek, the second one as a Lenonandek son, the third one as the material son, and these 2, the second and the third, were the bestowals in which he was directly involved with 2 previous rebellions, correct? And both of those rebellions have been adjudicated. So we know it happens. It finishes sooner or later, doesn't it? Okay. And then the 4th one, he was the supreme seraphim. The 5th one, he was an ascendant pilgrim on Uversa. So the 5th one, he was actually outside the local universe, right? And then on the 6th one, he came back inside the local universe on Constellation 5 as a Morancha mortal, right? On the headquarters planet of Constellation 5.
On the 5th one, he was still experiencing what someone born on this planet would go through.
That's exactly right, Miller.
He had to experience all of it. And when they get that far, he had to experience what that's like too.
Yes, he did. Now, remember, when he was on the 6th one, he was a Morancha mortal, okay? But when he got to Uversa, what's the difference? He was a spirit mortal. You see the difference? He was actually.
I would have thought they were backwards. That
No,
5 should have been Morancha and 6, the eventuated ascendant pilgrim.
Just the opposite, because the 7th one is the lowest form. The 1st one is the highest form. Okay. So the first one, he, as a Melchizedek, he started out as the highest form of being that he created, right? And then he went down through the Lananandek, which was the next being he created, then to the material sons, then that was the next beings he created. Then he went to the supreme seraphim, which was the next level for the creative spirit, right? And then he went down to 5 as an ascendant pilgrim. But when he did that, he was outside the local universe. He was in the super universe. And this is a person that was just ready to jump off into the billion worlds of Havana. Okay. So he got that experience also. And then the next one was as a full-fledged Morancha mortal of resident status. In other words, this mortal would have finished all the mansion worlds and gone on to the system capital. Okay. Now then the 7th one, we know he was a mortal. He also, though, on the 7th, if you remember, experienced all 7 of the mansion worlds while he was still on this planet as that type of being. In other words, he progressed while he was still on this planet. Now, why is all this important? Because he gained experience in every type of being that he created. Okay, personal experience. All right. Let me go back up here to a paragraph here.
Oh, he also did on that second bestowal as a Lananandek son.
Yeah.
Did not also give him insight into dealing with the system rebellion of the planetary prince, who was
That's
the
right.
Lananandek son.
He did. All right, I'm going to try to get through a lot of stuff here, but I want to make sure we read this paragraph 119.03. All right. Millie, do you see that in the middle of the screen there? Could you read that for us? When the eternal son?
Yes, I see. When the eternal son bestows a creator son upon a projected local universe, that creator son assumes full responsibility for the completion, control, and composure of that new universe, including the solemn oath to the eternal Trinity not to assume full sovereignty of the new creation until his 7 creature bestowals shall have been successfully completed and certified by the Ancients of Days of the super universe of jurisdiction. The obligation is assumed by every Michael's son who volunteers to go out from paradise to engage in universe organization and creation.
Okay, so they all the Michael sons do this, not just Jesus, not just Michael, but all the creator sons have to take this responsibility on. So they have to bestow themselves of every type of creature they create also before they can assume full responsibility for their universe. Now, the next paragraph, I want to make sure we read too. Rodney, would you take the next paragraph, the purpose of these?
Yes. The purpose of these creature incarnations is to enable such creators to become wise, sympathetic, just, and understanding sovereigns. These divine sons are innately just, but they become understandingly merciful as a result of these successive bestowal experiences. They are naturally merciful, but these experiences make them merciful in new and additional ways. These bestowals are the last steps in their education and training for the sublime task of ruling the local universes, divine righteousness, and by just judgment.
Now, why would they need to do that? Because they gain the experience of every type of being that they've created. So when a being or some types of creature that they have created has any experience, they have been through those experiences themselves. So that gives them an experiential mercy. You see that? And it also gives them an experiential understanding of what every type of being goes through from the bottom to the top, right? So that's
Roger.
very important. Yes, Bill.
You know, they said not to, and certified in that previous paragraph, and certified by the ancients of days.
Right.
Isn't, if I understand correctly, at the Mount of Transfiguration, isn't that when Jesus was advised that he had passed the certification by the ancients of days?
No, that wasn't, I don't believe that was a certification by the ancients of days. That was the acceptance of his bestowal by God the Father and God the Son.
Ah, okay.
Okay. He didn't get the certification until after he died, experienced the death of a human being, and he actually rose again. So that's when the certification, we're going to talk about these sovereignty certifications near the end of this tonight.
Okay.
So we'll go into that a little bit more detail. Now there's
Thank you.
other benefits of this it talks about in this paper, and I'm not going to belay those because we've been through this paper before. I just wanted to hit the highlights of that. So we know his first bestowal was as Melchizedek, right? And he went through several things. There's also something else it talks about in these papers when it talks about how long he is gone on each one of these experiences, okay? And something I want to show you, it talks about at noon he left, how long he was gone, and when he came back, right? But I want to show you something in the notes. It's also going to be on the main page of our website tomorrow. There's near the left-hand side. Let me show you real quick. Up here, right under topical studies, you're going to find a new link tomorrow when I put this video on, okay? And the new link will be, it will say time studies. I'm going to show you, go over here and show you what it's about. Down at the very bottom, there's a link on the notes. It says time study HTML. You see that? So at the very bottom. All right, and I'm going to click on that. And on this page, I've had this page out there quite a long time, but I've added to it because it breaks down every type of time there is from the Jerusalem Standard Day to Urantia days, from the Super Universe Day to the Urantia days, from the Super Universe year and how long that would be in Urantia years and days. So I put all these things together. So because in the book, it talks over and over about this took this long and this took this long. And sometimes it tells us in Super Universe years, sometimes it tells us in Super Universe days, and sometimes it tells us in standard Nebadon days, and sometimes it tells us in Earth days or Earth years. And that's why I put all this time study down here. So you can take anything you find in the book and you can look it up on this chart. Okay, so when they say something takes 20 years of standard universe time, you can go to this chart and multiply 20 years out by whatever it is, and you'll find out how long it is. Okay, let me see if I can find a quick example, but this time study document will be a link on both of our main pages right underneath topical studies after today. Okay, and that's where I'm going to put it. Okay, it's also at the end of our notes for today too, so you can look that up at your leisure. Okay, now the reason I did this, in this paper, it uses, I think, 2 different types of time. One of them, it records it as Nebadon time, and the other as Super Universe time. Okay, so you have to know these things to be able to multiply in your mind to figure out how long he was gone, really. Okay, and that's why I put this chart together for y'all, so that you can figure these things out, because it's important when we read this stuff. If we really understand it, we know how long it took him to finish each one of these bestowals. Some of them took standard universe 20 years, and others, a standard universe 20 years would be 100 years in Urantia time. So those sort of things are important. So you figure if most of his bestowals were around 100 years of Earth time, you get an idea how long each one of these bestowals took. You know, it wasn't just a walk in the park, right? He actually spent time.
Well, this bestowal on this planet then would have been probably one of the shortest bestowals he ever did.
It was. It really was his shortest bestowal. And Bill, maybe that is because we murdered him. If you think about it.
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah. Millie, you're muted. You're trying to tell us something? Millie, unmute and say it again.
I think I tried to figure that out one time. He was only here 3 days.
Yeah. in local or super universe time, it would have been 3 days. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it was. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And you can calculate that off from this chart and figure it out pretty quickly. So in his time, it was really short, right? And in our time, it seemed longer. But if you think about it, the reason I really am hitting this so hard is this. Jesus has promised to return to this planet, has he not? He said, I will return someday.
That's right.
It's only been it's been 2,000 years now, right? Since he left. To Jesus, 2,000 years is nothing, right? So I don't think we should get too antsy about him showing up tomorrow, right? I think it's going to be a while, you know?
Don't hold your breath.
That's right. Don't hold your breath. You might turn purple before he gets here, I'm afraid. So, or you should say black if you're going to hold your breath that long. Okay. So
we might get one of the other 2 types of paradise sons before he comes back down.
I think we might get both of them before he comes back, Bill. We're seriously, you know, we definitely have had a magisterial son come and adjudicate the planet probably twice now since Jesus left. Okay. We didn't know
Well,
that
if I were treated the way Jesus was treated, I wouldn't come back.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
I'm not sure he'd come back.
Yeah, but
we haven't learned a thing. We have not progressed.
Yeah, we haven't.
Got that right.
We haven't learned our lessons at all in so many different ways.
Is that my computer ding donging?
No, it's Rodney's. His
okay.
Come and gone a couple times.
Okay.
Probably a connection problem. Okay, so that's why I'm not going to go into great detail on each one of these bestowals tonight, because y'all can read this and you can look into the previous videos. But these 7 bestowals are so important for our understanding of why Jesus came to this planet, right? This is all within the plan that he come to this planet and finish his 7 bestowals. Now, we know that 2 of these bestowals in Polonia, it was a rebellion. All right. And the next one, it was also a rebellion on planet 217 in system 87 constellation 61. He was a material son, and he came as a acting system sovereign in that one, and that was during a rebellion also. The interesting part on this second one is the fact that he actually saved all the people of that planet, and the leaders of that planet repented of their sins, and so they really was rehabilitated on the second one, right? The first one refused to rehabilitate himself. So on the second one, he basically straightened everybody out before he left as a material son. All right. And many things that he's done on these planets, we will never know. because these are the secrets, what they call the secrets of Sonarrington. This is the world of the Paradise Creator Sons. And all the things they did is only totally known on that world, on the records of that world. And none of us will ever be able to go to that world because we're not Creator Sons of God, right? All right. And then on the fourth bestowal, it says he was a assistant to a Trinity teacher son. Bill, you just talked about having a Trinity teacher son come to our planet. Well, Jesus actually was a seraphim assistant to one of these Trinity teacher sons that came to another planet. Okay, so he's gained the experience of helping out a Trinity teacher son or a Daniel on another planet. So he's gained that experience also, right? He was a private secretary or a teacher, they say. So, which is interesting also. Then the fifth bestowal, we've already talked about a little bit. At this point, he was a spirit mortal, a mortal getting ready to jump off and go to the billion worlds of Havona, right? And it talks about all the great thing he did on this one too. Now, an interesting thing that me and Diane were talking about at lunch today is this. If you think about it, Jesus or Michael did all these experiences to gain experiential knowledge of each type of being, right? And you think about it, if he had the opportunity to do these great things in each one of these bestowals, think about what happens when we leave this planet. We go to the 7 mansion worlds and everything is just tremendously better than it is here. But do you think that we go through the rest of life without struggles? Not likely, is it? Because how would Jesus gain experience if he didn't have struggles in each one of these bestowals? And if he had these struggles, that means as a being, as we progress up, we also have struggles to deal with and learn, right? So if you're planning on leaving this planet and sitting around and playing a harp and singing songs and all this stuff, you're going to be disappointed, because it's going to be a lot more like this planet with our daily struggles than you think it will not be, right? So our experience goes on through eternity, but that experience will have great, beautiful things. And it'll also have difficult struggles for us to overcome so that we can continue learning. Make sense? So that kind of changes your attitude of what happens when we leave the planet. Now, the sixth bestowal, he was a Morontial mortal, right? And on this one, actually, Gabriel went along with him, right? To gain the experience on this one. And also Gabriel went along with him on the seventh bestowal, right? So we know what the seventh bestowal was. And we know that he chose this planet right after the default of Adam and Eve. Okay, so Jesus saw, or Michael saw, that this planet was in trouble, right? So he felt that he would do his final bestowal on this planet to show us the way to the Father, if you think about it. And that's because of the default on Adam and Eve. So all the terrible things about the default of Adam and Eve, one benefit from that is the fact that we were chosen for the seventh bestowal. So we have the benefit of having the Creator Son of God on this planet for us as an example. What a wonderful thing if you think about it.
Hey, Roger.
Yes.
I noticed something. Go back up to the picture on the fifth bestowal.
Fifth bestowal, okay. That's the sixth one.
Okay.
All right, this is the fifth one. Yeah. You're muted, Bill. You muted yourself.
Okay. See, Gabriel is right next to Jesus in that picture.
Yeah, it's the fifth, sixth, and seventh.
The fifth, sixth, and seventh. But
Right.
the seventh, they didn't put it on there.
No, but he was here too. It's in the
Okay.
text of this one. Yeah, even
Yeah,
though
okay.
it's not in the picture. Yeah.
Thank
No, but
you.
he was there for the 5th, 6th, and 7th. And it's interesting because it talks about how as this bestowal starts, they spread around the responsibilities of Gabriel's position while he was gone. In other words, Emmanuel took over again, but the other angels took up some of the responsibilities of Gabriel while he was gone. So it made the administration of our local universe a little more widespread during that period of time, right? Okay, and that is basically the 7th bestowals. Now, I want to go down here to near the end, the post-bestowal status, okay? And an important part of this, we're going to go through the sovereignty thing in just a minute, but what another important part of this I want to bring up is the fact that Jesus's finish of doing his bestowals actually adds to the Trinity ultimate, or the ultimate Trinity, whichever one you want to say it, same thing, okay? And I want to read this 8:6. Well, let's go with 8:5 and 8:6. Is Rodney got, Bill, would you take 8:5, please?
Sure. Okay, let me move you a little bit. 8:5. The completion of these 7 bestowals resulted in the liberation of Michael's supreme sovereignty, and also in the creation of the possibility for the sovereignty of the supreme in Nevadon. On none of Michael's bestowals did he reveal God the Supreme, but the sum total of all 7 bestowals is a new Nevadon revelation of the Supreme Being.
So by finishing his sovereignty of the 7 bestowals, he adds to the experience of the Supreme, and this also adds to a new revelation of the Supreme Being. Now, why is this important? Because the Supreme Being is part of this ultimate Trinity. You see that? Jesus is part of the 7 supreme creators, right? The master architects are part of the unqualified absolute, right? And then you have the evolved supreme being, which is the result of God the Supreme in this universe. And the importance of this is the next paragraph. Millie, could you take that next paragraph for us in the experience?
In the experience of descending from God to man, Michael was concomitantly experiencing the ascent from partially of manifestability to supremacy of finite action and finality of the liberation of the potential for absonite function. Michael, a creator son, is a time-space creator, but Michael, a 7-fold master son, is a member of one of the divine core constituting the Trinity ultimate.
Okay, now, because Michael became the finality of supremacy, his finality of supremacy happened by his all seventh bestowals. It liberates his potential for absonite function. What's it talking about there? It's talking about it liberates him to work in an absonite super universe, which is the 4 outer space levels. They're all absonite, okay? And because he goes from a time-space creator to a 7-fold master son, he becomes a member of the divine core that constitutes the ultimate Trinity. So it frees him up to do work in the 4 outer space levels along with the Supreme. And that is very important. There's another chart on that a little bit below that. And I just got a page from Rodney. He's having internet difficulties. and he says, said you'll watch the video after it's posted, and says, may the Father bless y'all, everyone. So unfortunately, he can't reconnect to us because of his internet. So we'll keep going. All right, so let's go down here a little bit more. All right, so this seventh bestowal makes it possible for Michael to become part of that work that is going to happen in the 4 outer space levels, okay? Because he's a supreme son now. All right, now let's go back to the notes for a second and bring this all together. First, I want to read this one paragraph from the birth and infancy of Jesus. So after these 6 bestowals, what's the next step? He became a babe in the manger, right? And if that's what you want to call it. So I want to read through this one paragraph of the birth and infancy of Jesus. Dear, would you like to take that paragraph for us?
All that night, Mary was restless, so that neither of them slept much. By the break of day, the pangs of childbirth were well in evidence, and at noon, August 21, 7 BC, with the help and kind ministrations of women, fellow travelers, Mary was delivered of a male child. Jesus of Nazareth was born into the world, was wrapped in the cloth which Mary had brought along for such a possible contingency, and laid in a nearby manger. In just the same manner as all babies before that day and since have come into the world, the promised child was born. And on the 8th day, according to the Jewish practice, he was circumcised and formally named Joshua, Jesus.
Okay, so that's the actual story of Jesus' birth, and this is the paper 122. In that paper also, it talks about the Magi, right? Okay, and something I want to talk about, this, the Magi came to Jesus or to Joseph and Mary 3 weeks after Jesus was born. So by that time, they had moved into a room at the inn, and shortly after that with some relatives. Okay, so they probably came when they just moved in with the relatives. But what I want to talk about for just a second is the fact that on 122:8-7, it breaks up the myth about the star of Jesus and the Magi and the angels singing to him and all that. And I'm not going to read the whole paragraph because I want to spend that last little bit of time on the sovereignty of Jesus. But y'all can read that as your at your leisure, because it definitely says here, these wise men saw no star to guide them to Bethlehem. You see that? Also, it also talks about in this paper how Jesus was born like every other child. He was not born of a virgin. Okay, which the Christian church hates me to say, okay? And it talks about here how the Orientals and the Near Oriental mind delighted in fairy stories and myths, and that's how this whole legend got started. Okay, so y'all can read that at your leisure. I don't want to break all your bubbles, but I do want to go on to the sovereignty of Jesus, because this is, excuse me, this is why Jesus came and was born on this earth, and why we should be celebrating the Christmas time. Okay? And this is it right here. Bill, would you like to start at the top of this? Actually, I'm losing my voice. So you want to read all 7 of these for me, please? Or if you want to read the first 3, then we can get Millie to read the last 4.
Okay. Well, I'll go ahead.
Go ahead, Bill.
The sovereignty of a creator son in a local universe passes through 6, perhaps 7 stages of experiential manifestation. These appear in the following order. 1. Initial vicegerent sovereignty. The solitary provisional authority exercised by a creator son before the acquirement of personal qualities by the associated creative spirit.
Hold it for just a second, Bill. That sovereignty happens before he joins up with the local universe creative spirit. Okay? That's what they're talking about. And that sovereignty is given him by the local infinite spirit, or the infinite spirit of the Trinity. Okay, go on, Bill.
Okay. Conjoint vicegerent sovereignty, the joint rule of the paradise pair subsequent to the personality achievement of the universe mother spirit.
Okay, hold that for just a second, Bill. That sovereignty is acquired along with the local universe mother spirit, but before she becomes a full endowed personality in the local universe. Okay, all right, let's go on, Bill.
3. Augmenting vicegerent sovereignty, the advancing authority of a creator son during the period of his 7 creature bestowals.
Now, this sovereignty happens along the way as he does these bestowals, and he gets certified by the Ancients of Days on every single one of these bestowals. Okay, Billy, you want to take the next one? You want Bill to keep going?
Bill can go on.
Okay, Bill.
Okay. 4. Supreme sovereignty, the settled authority following the completion of the 7th bestowal. In Nebadon, supreme sovereignty dates from the completion of Michael's bestowal on Urantia. It has existed just slightly over 1900 years of your planetary time.
And that's where we are today. We're on number 4, the supreme sovereignty of Jesus. Okay, so he's the supreme sovereign of Nebadon, or our local universe. He is for all facts and purposes, our God. Okay, now he has a little bit more to go. So let's go to number 5.
Okay. 5. Augmenting supreme sovereignty, the advanced relationship growing out of the settling of a majority of the creature domains in light and life. This stage pertains to the unachieved future of your local universe.
Okay, so when we reach light and life, Jesus or Michael will gain supreme sovereignty over everything after it's reached light and life, all his local universe, right? Okay, and let's go on to the next one, Bill.
6. Trinitarian sovereignty, exercised subsequent to the settling of the entire local universe in light and life.
That's after everything of the entire local universe is settled in light and life. He will have the Trinitarian sovereignty. Okay, and one more here, Bill.
Okay, number 7, unrevealed sovereignty, the unknown relationships of a future universe age.
And this is a sovereignty he will gain once he gets outside the 7 super universes and starts in the 4 outer space levels. So that's the future sovereignty, right? Okay, and then let's take this last paragraph. Millie, would you take that last paragraph for me?
Yes, I will. I'm okay. In accepting the initial vicegerent sovereignty of a projected local universe, a creator, Michael, takes an oath to the Trinity not to assume supreme sovereignty until the 7 creature bestowals have been completed and certified by the super universe rulers. But if a Michael son could not, at will, assert such unearned sovereignty, there would be no meaning in taking an oath not to do so.
So Michael took an oath not to assume full sovereignty until he finished his 7 bestowals, right? And there's no reason for him to do that unless he could do that regardless, okay? But the important thing to this, we talked about Boy, we just made it by 7 o'clock too. The important thing of all of this is this: the Christmas season and celebrating Christmas, the birth of Christ, all has to do with the 7 bestowals. Okay, not really the birth of Christ. The birth of Christ is the action of doing that, right? But what the meaning of doing this, or the significance of doing this, of him being born and coming to this planet, was these 7 bestowals. So this is what? The significance of Christmas all the way around. That makes sense to y'all? So it took us 2 hours to get to this point, but that was the whole point of the significance of Christmas. Is it started 987 billion years ago, right? It didn't start when Jesus was born. It started 987 billion years ago, and our local universe is started 400 billion years ago, right? So this is the significance of Christmas. So when you get ready to celebrate Christmas morning, you need to think back. This has been a 987 billion pathway to get to this moment. Pretty impressive, isn't it? You think about it. Does anybody have any questions? I know there's only 4 of us left, but we good tonight? We're good.
We're
All right,
good.
let's have a little
We're not.
prayer and we will settle.
We could celebrate his sovereignty when we celebrate Christmas, because
That's right.
Here, then he had finished his 7th mission.
That's right. Final bestowal. That's
And
correct.
he is supreme sovereign. So we can celebrate his sovereignty.
That's right.
Not his
We can.
birth, but his sovereignty. The birth has
That's
nothing to do with it.
That's
An
right.
interesting question, though, that I might have is how many planets right now are settled in light and life in this local universe?
I
In
don't
our
really,
universe,
yeah, our local universe, I don't really know, but apparently it started happening, Bill, in our local universe, because we've got planets that's been populated for over 200 million years. So we probably have a few planets that are at that point by now, you know, if you think about 200 million years. So that's quite a long time.
That is.
the book
Yes.
tells us one planet that's near us that's very like us, and I like to
Yeah.
read about it, how they run their planet.
Yeah.
I don't like the separation, though, that all the good guys are over here and they don't let the bad guys come in.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
That's one way to do it.
Yeah. Well, let's say a little prayer and we'll close tonight. I hope y'all enjoyed this little side trip away from our normal study. Next week, we will go back to our normal study on paper 8, section 2. So I just felt like this was a great time to do this right before Christmas. And I'm glad y'all
Thank
let
you,
me
sir.
do it.
Thank
Yeah.
you. Thank you.
Let's have a little prayer and we'll close for tonight. Father, thank you for the opportunity to present this wonderful information from this wonderful revelation to us. We hope that you'll bless our lives with this information and keep it in mind when we celebrate our Christmas time and Christmas holidays with one another. Keep our spirit of giving going, because the Creator Son has given us so much. And the real gift at Christmas time is the fact that our Creator Son, Michael, Jesus of Nazareth, gave so much of himself over billions of years that we might learn and progress our way through the mansion worlds and on to paradise to meet you, God the Father. We thank you for this. We thank you for this knowledge, and we pray that you'll help us remember a little bit of it so we can share it with others. We pray that you'll be with us on each of these meetings and that you'll bless this world in this time of trouble. We thank you and we give you the praise. In Jesus' name, Michael of Nebanon. Amen.
Amen.
And thank you all for at home for joining us, and please come see us on our regular meetings. Okay. Stop the recording.